All right, welcome back to the Mediocre Marketer. I'm your host, Whitney Cowell. Joining me today is Brendan Hufford. He is the founder of Growth Sprints, former teacher, I have learned, which is an interesting evolution of career. And he's joining us today to talk a little bit about his journey, how he has found himself in the world of SaaS marketing. So welcome, Brendan.
Yeah, Whitney, thanks for having me. This will be cool.
Yeah. So first and foremost, what happened with that transition from teacher to marketer?
Yeah, so I was the kind of kid that tried to do everything right. I followed the set path, the safe path. I remember I got to Ithaca College where I went to school, and I got there early and for my freshman year, and I remember sitting down in the cafeteria, and at that time, this is gonna make me feel old, but at that time, the course catalog was like an actual catalog. Like they give you a big blue book, and you had to open it, and you're like, I literally got there and was like, I'm gonna figure out a major. Like I had no plans. And I looked through everything, and I was either going to be, I decided in that moment at 18 years old, right, where we don't trust 18-year-olds with a lot of things.
No.
But you can take on crippling amounts of debt and choose a career. We let them do that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I decided to be a teacher. It was either that or I was going to go into radio. And I think they both would have been fine. But in that moment, I decided to be a teacher, did everything right? Went to college, got a job out of college, was teaching, got my educational administration degree, went in, became a principal, and realized that after all that hard work, essentially climbed the ladder, realized ladder was leaned up against the wrong wall. After all of that work, I was rewarded with Sunday night panic attacks, like an extra 25 pounds around my midsection, a really unhealthy relationship with alcohol, all the bad things. And I was like, this is terrible. I don't want to do this. Love teaching, but I think we all realize if we ever go into management, doing the thing and managing the thing are two totally different jobs. Had no idea, everybody had really pumped me up, oh, you're a great teacher, you're going to be a great principal. It was awful. So I did something that was against the advice of everybody in my life, which was I went back to teaching. I did a one step back to take two steps forward. Because if you're already drowning, the idea that you're going to take on more to make a career change is impossible.
No.
So I took a step back. I switched schools, went to a different school, taught for a few more years. That gave me enough escape velocity that I remember I was sitting, and I'll say this, Whitney, I didn't come up in a professional digital marketing world. I learned marketing through what I call online marketing, which is a lot of ClickFunnels and Tai Lopez and a lot of gurus selling courses about how to sell courses. That's how I came up. And they all preach you hate your job, so you should quit your job and run your own business. And I'm like, cool, I do hate my job. I'm going to quit and do my own thing. And I was literally, when you're a high school teacher, you get 15 minutes for lunch, just like the kids. It's awful. And I remember I was sitting in my car in my crappy little Nissan Versa out in the parking lot. And I'm a big, it was like a clown car. I'm a big person, right? And I'm in this tiny little car on my phone talking to my friend on my lunch break for 15 minutes. And he just says to me, he goes, why don't you just go work in marketing somewhere? And I had never considered it. Never had. I always thought I had to do my own thing and run my own business where I was a podcaster or something. And I literally went, I was not a good teacher the rest of that day. I went back into the school and just spent the rest of the day applying for jobs. And by the end of the school year was thanks, appreciate you all. But we ended the school year on a Friday, and on a Monday I was working as an SEO director in a design agency.
An SEO director, that was a fast turnaround and a quick escalation.
I'd been building things on the side for a long time. And I built a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu apparel company, learned imports and exports. So a lot of dabbling in e-commerce, had a pretty good podcast going. I had this weird, deep generalism, kind of like a liberal arts degree in marketing, basically.
Okay.
And I sold those little side hustles. And when I say it's fun, working in tech and stuff now, you say you sold a business, people I exited, right? I didn't. I sold them and we put some new tile in the bathroom. Like that's how much it was not for any significant amount of money, but I sold them and then I didn't know what to do next. So on the side, I was kind of like doing client work. And one of the core skill sets I had was SEO, and I could do a lot of different things, but that was the thing people said they needed help with. So that's what I was doing. So then I went to an agency and basically walked into the interview, spun my laptop around and was like, this is what I do. Would that be helpful here? And they were like, oh, thank God. Yes. Like somebody with a process that we don't have to train. You're not junior. Like, yes, come and join us. So I had that lined up before the end of the year, and it was like, they were like, do you want to take time off? I'm like, I've been waiting 10 years for this moment. No, right. I don't want to take time off. I'm ready on Monday.
Ready. Yeah.
So I remember, go ahead.
I was going to say, what was the hardest part of making that leap? Because obviously you're ready, but was there any sort of fear of this might not work out?
Yeah, like, I mean, everybody told me I was like throwing my career away and stuff. I'm like, first of all, I'm 10 years into this and I'm making $45,000 a year. Like, I'm not throwing anything away here. Let's be honest.
Right.
And also, you know, I learned, like, I took, like, even this that I'm doing right now comes from 10 years of looking 14-year-olds in the face and like having to be the show every day. And you got to show up fresh because they'll eat you alive and they don't care.
14-year-olds are brutal.
So it's the best / worst. I love it. It's a good environment for me because you got to be on your shit every single day, but rough sometimes, you know? Yeah. And I think the hardest part with that was just like believing that like my skills would carry over and that it was the right, I mean, I had been waiting so long, and that's where the hard part was. It's all that stuff that people didn't see. Like that transition moment was 5 or 6 years of getting up at 3 and 4 in the morning before it was cool. This is before all like the bros got into their morning routines and their ice baths and all that crap that we see on like, you know, the internet now. Before all of this, before even Instagram existed, I was just getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning because I just wanted it. I just was like, I have to get out of this. And I know this is a path. And I just believed like if I threw enough work at it, things would work out.
Yeah.
Like my wife would always be like, well, how's that going to like make money? What's that going to turn into? And I'm like, I don't know, but I know that it's the right thing. So I'm just going to keep going, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that was the hardest part, just like braving through that when everybody's like, you're nuts.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine that it would be because it's a complete 180. It wasn't a natural progression from, it seems like an outsider's perspective, but from what you were doing, it made sense. It just needed that extra bit of input and I guess affirmation of, hey, you should be doing this full time.
Totally.
So what has been your biggest career mistake? I'm curious if that was pre or post transition into marketing.
So I was at that first agency. It was a web design agency. And because it was a web design agency, it would never be a marketing agency, which meant I was always beholden to the clients who came in for design. And then I would be like, all right, I'll help you with marketing. And I had this like really cool skill set. Like I said, I was the SEO director, but I was articulate and charismatic enough that they would bring me on sales calls. And like, I was starting to help them sell a lot of these big $100,000, $200,000, $100,000, $1 million projects. And so I started developing that skill set, but I could also talk about email marketing. I could talk about all these like other pieces of marketing, not just SEO. Mm-hmm. And I loved it there. Like it was honest to God, a great place to work. And I really liked it, but I knew that it had a cap of like how much I could do. And I didn't know if I wanted to like work for window washing companies and, you know, transportation, like just like whatever random, the local zoo, like I don't know, they were cool, but I was just like, is this what I want for my career? And so I started a project called 100 Days of SEO. I was like, I want to be a known person in that industry. I put out a YouTube video. These are all still alive too. A YouTube video, a podcast episode, and a blog post every day for like 20 weeks. So 5 times 20 is 100 days. And I've had sponsors and all this stuff. And it was really cool. It was a really exciting project. It got like a lot of attention. But it got attention of people that wanted to hire me. Mm-hmm. And one agency was like, I got a cold DM on Twitter of all places. And it was like, hey, we currently work with like Allstate Insurance and all of these like blue chip enterprise companies. We're looking for somebody to come in and lead the SEO team. And I was like, I will absolutely take that call. And they seemed really cool.
Sure.
It was like California, like amazing clients, cool. Like I was like, cool. I'm in. I made that decision in January of 2020 to go to a new agency. And it was a bummer. I got like really emotional even when I quit because I like really loved this other company. And they were like, what can we do to keep you? And I'm like, nothing. Because like you can't not be a web design agency. So I left. I went to this marketing agency. Immediately knew it was a terrible decision because as soon as I started, they were like, oh, we cover 75% of insurance. I was like, great. And they were like, oh, just kidding. It's only 75% of insurance for you. Your 3 children. I have 4 boys, but we had 3 at the time. Your 3 children and your wife who are on your insurance, we're not covering anything for them. So I was like, cool. I just took like a $40,000 pay cut. Awesome. And then day one, the head of the company remarked to my counterpart. So I was leading the organic search team. We had a paid guy leading the paid team. He remarked to the other guy, hey, this guy in your team that you manage, he said something to the effect of, that guy's home life is a mess. And if his home life is a mess, no wonder his work is a mess. You need to fire him. And I thought to myself, I will never talk about my family here. And I will not be able to work here that long. Yeah. I stuck it out for 10, 11 months. It was one of the worst experiences I've ever had professionally. And I say this having been a teacher who had been like punched in the face by students and had all this wild stuff happen. That paled in comparison to the mental trauma of working at this company in 2020. So it was already awful. And then, I can get more into that, but like, that was definitely the worst decision. And I was also really upset because I left something I loved for like something really, really toxic and bad.
Yeah. So how did you bounce back from that? How did you have the, I guess, perseverance, first of all, to stick it out for that many months? I mean, that's almost a year of toxicity and crap.
It was bad. It was really hard. It was like every day of walking upstairs after work. And we were all in the house, right? Like it was lockdown. All my kids are home doing school from home. We found out we were going to have another baby during that time. So my wife is like super pregnant and was an absolute hero and saint, like holding everything down. But I would walk upstairs every day after work and she'd be like, did you get fired today? And I'm like, not today. Could be any day. We don't know. It was wild. It was to the point where right before we had our 4th kid, my son Miles, I had a like 3-day long migraine. I've never had a migraine before in my whole life. I know some people have them a lot. I didn't know what it was. I basically like couldn't see, couldn't think, like just paralyzing headache at all times. And when it went away, you know how when you like close one eye, like if you blink between your eyes, like it's different. Because they're in a like, and your brain just puts them together for one picture. Your brain's like, you're good. Like, I'll just make them one picture.
It's wild my brain how it works, but
yeah, my brain just stopped, and it was like you see 2 now of everything. You have severe double vision to the point, and I had to like, newborn baby. I was literally driving my wife to the hospital to have the baby like with one eye closed, just so I could like.
That's so not safe.
No, it was it was insane in like October of 2020, right? So we're trying to like figure all this out. I'm also like doing this terribly toxic job. I'm trying to find new jobs like on the low. And we're having a baby and again, like 3 existing children at home who are a handful to say the least. And I adore them, but like, that's a lot. And it was just trying to, so like, it didn't go great. To answer your question, like it went really bad. It was really hard. I think what got me through was just continuing to like put out work. And in that case was just building an audience on LinkedIn, like just continuing to share everything I was learning, everything I was doing. I was like, I think I really hated Twitter and found that to be super toxic and bad all the time, even back then, even more so now. but like, I just kept like putting stuff out and kept like having people that would like follow me and get it, like all of that sort of stuff. I was just like, I believed like if I just keep doing content marketing, good things will happen. And I think that was very much the saving grace, that then when I went to leave, like I had this reputation, I had this network, I had a lot of people that I could be like, hey, I saw you're hiring for this. Like, essentially, can I skip the line? Can we just talk? Right. I had like, I'm going to apply, but I want to talk to you, VP of marketing, the CMO, whoever. Like, we already know each other. Can we just chat? I think that's what saved me, was that early and often I was just I just like having friends. I like connecting with people. So that was very much the saving grace.
Having a strong network is a game changer in a career, and you don't know it until you need it. And so that's why I think it's really important to be proactive. I mean, that's how I got one of my jobs. It was just researching companies. I knew somebody at a place. I reached out and said, hey, looks like you're a one-man show. Do you need some help? Got a job, had an offer in my inbox within a week. So it can make a difference when you need it the most. And that's why I would encourage anybody, just a little plug for LinkedIn. If you haven't built a network, start. But then, so now you're transitioning and you're doing SaaS marketing. You're helping companies outperform to scale. You're helping with SEO. What have you noticed is different in that type of marketing versus others? Say the space that I'm in as a 3PL, it's a service. And then there's tangible products. Because you said you had a little bit of experience back in the e-commerce side of things. So what is the major difference in those and what you do every day?
So what I learned, one of the things I held, even though the agency was awful and all that, a big thing that I am really proud of that we accomplished here was we repositioned. If you looked at it, other than Allstate Insurance, which was like our biggest blue chip client that we love to like show their logo everywhere, every single other one was a software company. And I'm like, why don't we just say we're for software companies? And then why don't we back into an offer that makes sense for them? Meaning, like, instead of saying like we do SEO and we do paid, who wants to buy this? Why don't we just like, what else can we help software companies with that makes it a grand slam offer? That's a big difference with services. Services, a lot of times you just continue to like think through like, how do we better serve this client base, right?
Right.
Versus software, where a lot of times it's like, well, the software is the offer. That's what we want. And they just keep doing things. And I think that might be a mistake for a lot of companies, but I think maybe different than service and maybe different than a lot of e-commerce. In software, there's a lot more emphasis put on like recurring revenue, especially in SaaS. And especially you end up becoming, and we're seeing this really become a dumpster fire now because a lot of the cheap money is dried up. But we all got really excited about cheap money and like really fast turnaround cycles, like really fast funding cycles. So the whole industry of software marketing was a byproduct of these funding cycles, where it was like MRR and weekly, daily, monthly growth. And it was very short-term marketing, quick returns, quick ROI, whatever we can do fast. A lot of like growth hacking and stuff. Even like LinkedIn's a great example. We all used to get those emails that was like, Whitney wants to connect with you on LinkedIn. And it's like, because they just didn't ask permission. They just emailed all of our contacts, all this spam, and they ended up having to pay for it. They got fined, but I think their user acquisition cost for like an end user was something like 50 cents a user, which is so astronomically cheap. Like, even though they ended up getting fined, like it was still worth it by far.
Right.
But you get into that, and I'm not saying that's a good idea, but you get into this like growth hacky thing where it's like, however fast and dirty we can get customers or users, that's what we need to do, because we have to show traction. We have to like, whatever it is, like triple, double type of thing. And that's a very big difference than service. Whereas in service, if you triple, double, your company has to likely triple in size again the next year, which means it's whatever, 900% as big. like all of a sudden we're like 5,000% bigger. Like that's not possible, right? So it tends in services, because more things break as you get more customers and clients. The growth tends to be a little more linear versus like trying to have this rocket ship all the time. Which means a lot of times you can do, I don't know if this has been your experience, but you can make different marketing bets. Same thing with e-commerce. It was my experience with e-commerce. You get all these like, e-commerce success stories that are like, oh my gosh, look at this. And it was this and this. And I like really just want to lean into them and be like, did you guys just have cheap Facebook ads? Was that what it was? Because it's everybody's thing. Every e-commerce growth story for like from like 2015 through 2020 was like, we just figured out Facebook ads. That was
and Instagram ads.
Yeah.
At that.
Yep. Yeah. Or they figured out influencer marketing or something, but it was on one of those two platforms, and it was the ads or organic on those. And that was really all you needed. Right.
Yeah. So in the SaaS world, what is the kiss of death in marketing? Because it's different. We've established there are different rules, there are different cadences, there are different strategies, and it's always going to be that way. So from your experience, if you have it, what is the ultimate kiss of death that you would say, I would never recommend this to somebody who's in that type of marketing position?
So I think like this is commonly thrown out. I think I get really frustrated with what I would call like meta marketing. And I don't mean like Meta, the platform, but the idea of internal marketing. Like it is your job as a marketer to constantly be telling everybody what you're doing and the ROI of what you're doing and all of this stuff. Outside of tech, that sounds insane. That I have to show up every day to you hired me to work here. You saw the need, you posted a job, and you dedicated money to my salary so I could come do this. Now I'm here, and you want me to turn around every single day and justify my existence. That's an insane thing to do, right? Like, can you imagine if like we asked people like I'm trying to think like, the postal workers like had to justify all right, now I'm going to every month I'm a postal worker, a mail carrier, and I have to make a PowerPoint presentation about how many letters I delivered, my average speed that I walked, how many steps I took every day. Like it's insane in every other job. But for us, we've gaslit ourselves into being like, oh yes, this is a very normal and reasonable thing that we should have to, basically defend our jobs every week, month, quarter, year. The meta marketing of all of it, and the degree, I think the kiss of death is the degree. And I think we've all kind of sussed out what this looks like in a job description, where they're like, we have a vibrant Slack community. And like, when you see stuff like that, you're like, all right, cool. I can tell like, if I don't reply to if my Slack light isn't green at all times, like that's a problem there, right? Like you can kind of see those red flags early. But the kiss of death is very much like one of two things. Like one, you have a CEO that doesn't get marketing and they're doing it begrudgingly because the board or investors or whoever, sometimes it's both, are telling them they have to. And they're like, I don't get it. I don't really believe in it. Maybe they're a salesperson or a product person or whatever. And they just think like, all we need is more product and better product. A good product sells itself. That's not true, especially anymore.
No,
maybe in like the 90s, but like, no. I think the late 1900s, if you will. Somebody said that to me the other day. They were like the late 1900s. I was like, oh no. It's so good.
But it feels like a statement that's that antiquated. I have heard that statement in my career, and I just needed to step back for a minute because I thought, I don't even know how to respond to such an asinine statement.
I think so. So I think you need like a CEO that gets marketing. That's hard. We don't all have that luxury or choice, right? Especially in today's job market. I think like having a CEO that gets marketing, a marketing leader that can shield you from all of the cruft. Like as a marketing leader, you're either like an umbrella and you get like the crap rains down on you and you defend your team, or you're like a crap funnel. I've had both types of managers in my career where they take all the crap they're getting and just distill it right down to you. So you feel all the stress they're feeling and everything, it's harmful for the team.
It's terrible leadership.
And you need a manager with taste. I think it's like those three things. Like a manager who has good taste in marketing. They're not like, I don't care what you make, get it out the door, get your check boxes checked. If that's your manager, like that's hard, because at the end of the day, like a lot of us, we want to know one of two things. Like, are we having an impact? And if you don't know that, you might probably leave that job. And are we proud of the work we're doing? Are we, as marketers, like, are we proud of the materials that we're creating and the things we're doing day in and day out? So the kiss of death is very much like where those things don't exist. Or like when I was in-house for a period of time, half of the time I was in-house at this company called Active Campaign. The first half was amazing. And then our leader left, rightfully so, to go to a new company, and he's amazing. But then we got a new manager who was very much like the crap funnel on top of us. And also like all of our job became meta marketing. It became this internal, like everybody's talking a lot and we're really busy, but like nobody's actually getting work done, and you can't get work done because everybody is blocking you all the time, like very territorial. And it's like, look, if I want to update one page on the website and I have to have 5 meetings a month for 6 months to do it, like we're not that big, like we're not IBM, like relax, you know?
Yeah, that's to me a lack of trust and a lack of understanding, either with management and the team or with the company and management.
Yeah. And I think and also, Annie, I'll say this, like this is a new thing, but I think like we're all coming to terms with the fact that there is, this is not just in marketing generally, like there are no stable jobs anymore, but especially in marketing, like we can all get laid off any day. And there will never be a marketer that works one place for 20 years. Like it's not going to happen. It's going to be
I mean, the average marketer stays at a company for about a year and 7 months ish right now.
Yeah. So like you think, you work 40, 45 years, you might be at 20 to 40 different places. And we're all coming to terms with that. And we're coming to terms, like, even if we don't switch for a salary increase or title increase or whatever, companies are going to lay us off or whatever. I think coming to terms with like that very much is a challenging piece that we all have to like reconcile anymore.
Yeah. I think a new thing that we're starting to see hit the scene as well is not having alignment with the job description and the expectations. And then you get there and somebody in the company at some point says, oh, and this, and then we're going to add this. And I've changed my mind about that. And then this isn't going to be your job anymore. And I know I brought you on to do organic, but now I need you to start working paid. And while you're at it, add in a new channel that you don't know anything about.
Just spin up partnerships.
Can you also throw some white papers in there? And that's sort of where I think we're seeing some of the job dissatisfaction, because like you said, our jobs, some of us will tolerate that to a point where we no longer feel, I think, authenticity within our skill sets, because we're being pulled in so many directions. And we try to accommodate, and then so no wonder we leave. We're either afraid and we don't agree with the direction the company is going in. Like you said, management has a huge impact on that. Senior leadership has a huge impact on that. And then sometimes the direction of what we're seeing the market doing, I think that also is shaping out the tenure and the retention at this time.
Which is a really good point. The thing that I've seen a lot of really good marketing leaders do well in terms of like hiring, like attract, I think about it like, let's attract, hire, and retain top talent. Like all three of those pieces. Sometimes people are really good at like attracting top talent, but they can't get them on to join, and then they can't keep them even if they do. A big piece of that is understanding what people want for their career. I learned this from MK, who's the CMO at Loop and Tie, around like really creating enough, we call it authenticity, transparency, whatever, just a deep enough relationship with your team where they will actually tell you what they want to do in their career. Because otherwise, like, you know what I mean? We also try to say the right thing early on in a new job.
We want it to sound good.
Yeah, I'd like to be here forever. I just want to do great work. And it's like,
this is my long term.
Yeah, I'm making this bet forever. But I think, nobody says I want to retire from this company. But I think the thing that's really interesting is that MK has done really well with their team is understand that and then map to it. Get people in the situations, in the seats, and give them the experiences that map. Some people on that team want to be a CMO someday. So they get a different set of at-bats than somebody who's like, I want to be a consultant and do my own thing.
Right. And
I think that's where you end up creating that type of network. Because at the end of the day, like any marketing leader, we live and die by one of two things. Hiring, right? What we just described, attracting, hiring and retaining top talent, and then our proximity to the customer. If we can be closest to the customer, we're usually not. We're usually like one of the furthest organizations away, even though we should be the closest. Product, customer success, like they're much closer than we are. But if we can get closer than them, that means we succeed as an organization and thus as a company. I think being able to do those two things, especially on the high, like figuring out what people want and then mapping and knowing, like, you know, if I worked for you, Whitney, and I was like, hey, I want to run growth sprints in 3 years, I want to be full time. Cool. What do you like? Let's map to get you there. And while you're here, you're going to do all this amazing work, but it's all going to transfer over because that's what you want. All of a sudden I feel valued. I feel very seen. I'm proud of my work. I'm contributing, getting big results. Like all those things work. You just have to be willing to understand, like you can have me for 3 to 5 years doing amazing work, or you can have me for 6 months and it's probably going to be a little lackluster.
Right. I think it's an important conversation, and I could talk ages on the ways to hire. Building a marketing department from the ground up where I'm at now has been incredibly rewarding. And that's one of the first things that we did was, what skill sets do you have? What do you want to gain? And every quarter we check in. What skill sets have you been using that are new? Do you want to refine those, or are you ready to try something new? And that's how we set our goals. So we have obviously our campaign goals, our company goals, what aligns with the business, but also how am I helping you grow personally and professionally? Because you have to have both of those. If you only focus on one, you're going to feel really imbalanced, and that's going to catch up at some point. So I hope that's a conversation that marketing leaders are having with their teams. I really do.
Yeah, I think everybody says it. A lot of people pay it lip service, but at the end of the day, we all can name 5 marketing leaders that have a immaculate reputation among everybody they've been hired by and have hired, right? Like, it's not about how many followers do you have on LinkedIn or some other stuff like that. It very much is when I back channel you, when I go ask the people who know things what they think, and every single one of them is like, that's one of the best people I've ever worked with, and here's why. Like those people, I think at the end of the day, that's what we all want, is a defensible career. Yeah. Right? I want to know that my kids are good. As long as I'm healthy and able to work, my children will be fine. Like that's the piece that I want in my life. I want that for everybody that's watching, listening to this. Like, and that's how you get it, is by doing great work, but also being like having that immaculate type of reputation.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Brendan, this has been a fabulous conversation. I have so many more questions. So if you hear from me to come back on, please don't be surprised. You have amazing perspectives. Yeah.
I hope we end it too. I'll say this, like anybody who's like still listening, watching, etc. Like I feel like we like went through like some rough stuff there. So I appreciate people hanging on and like getting like to the other side of it and like, here's actually how to do this stuff. Because I think a lot of people probably like were nodding their heads along with like, yes, I've been through that. I've been through this. I don't want this to feel like, you know, negative town, but I do think it's worth talking about and then like figuring out like we all have to navigate this stuff. How, you know?
Yeah. So we'll just say to be continued at a later date with a little bit more of a positive spin, and keep throwing some solutions and hard topics that people may not want to talk about.
I appreciate it, Whitney. Thank you.
Have a good